Hi guys, Jimmy from Boxing Life, and welcome back to another episode of Fight Thoughts. Today I've got another special guest on, former pro boxer, pro trainer, and gym owner, Matt Goddard. How's it going, Matt? Thanks so much for coming on.
Hello, James. Yeah, all good, thank you, mate.
I know we've been meaning to do this for a while, so it's great to finally get you on and pick your brain on stuff as well. So, I'm really looking forward to it, man.
Yeah, good. Me too, mate. It's a pleasure to be on, and as you said, it's been a long time coming. So nice to talk boxing with a fellow fan as well as somebody who's taken part in it.
Awesome, thank you, man. So I guess it makes sense to get right into the nitty gritty and the weekend action, which of course was Haney versus Garcia. So I was not expecting Ryan to get that victory at the weekend. I know styles make fights, obviously, and even just the whole build-up. At first, I thought he was completely trolling us all, and then towards the end, I thought he had gone crazy, but he proved me wrong completely. So, yeah, I'd just love to hear your thoughts on the fight itself, and are you surprised it went the way it did?
First and foremost, no. I am probably one of the very few people that throughout the build-up to this fight gave Ryan Garcia a very, very strong chance of victory. Now, with this fight, I normally do kind of prediction videos and stuff, but with this fight, I didn't actually do that. I should have with hindsight, but it was one for me that was a 50-50 pick'em. I think, they're three each for a reason. And although you will mature and change as you enter the professional ranks and develop more of a professional style, the fundamental basics are still there. If you watch videos of 99% of professional boxers when they were amateur, you can still see a lot of the habits, a lot of the things from when they were 14, 15 years old still exist as established pros. So it's hard to break the habits of old days. And for me, that sort of meant that this was always going to be a reasonably even fight. Also, I think stylistically, as you said, styles make fights, but you have to kind of look at the physical attributes of the fighters too. And Garcia's rangy, he's athletic, he carries power. And there's a reason Tank boxed the cautious fight that he did against him. And you wouldn't do that if the guy didn't carry power, because he would have just walked straight through him. So I think Devin Haney's lack of power in this fight was the real factor that sort of lost it for him.
Yeah.
Because it meant that Garcia was able to be a little bit lackluster and sort of throw punches through other shots, and that's how it played out.
Yeah. Were you surprised by the way Haney approached the fight, being willing to kind of stand in the pocket with Ryan a bit more? He was obviously looking to land his right hand, and he opened himself up when he threw out the jab, which obviously Ryan exploited with the left hook. But yeah, I was really surprised he was kind of willing. I get, it's one of those things where, maybe he thought because of the way Ryan was acting in the build-up, maybe he thought mentally he could impose himself. That's kind of my only thinking to why Haney approached the fight he did. But yeah, it'd be interesting to know if you're surprised that he didn't kind of have a more disciplined game plan like he did against Prograis, for example.
I'll be honest with you, mate. I was absolutely flabbergasted by the fact that he ever tried to exchange at all. I think two things happened. One, I think Garcia won the psychological battle in advance. I think it either went one of two ways. Now I can't say which of these two ways it went, but I think either the Haney side thought Garcia was so crazy that this was going to be a walkover and that he would fold, or they basically felt that they had to establish themselves because Garcia had been so dominant psychologically in the verbal exchanges and in the attention prior to the fight. Let's be honest, Ryan Garcia sold the fight. Devin Haney is not an exciting individual. There's nothing about Devin Haney that sells fights. He's not. He doesn't have anything promotionally to offer with regards to his character or charisma that is interesting. Please don't get me wrong and presume I dislike the guy, because it's not. I mean, I'm a purist boxing fan. I think he's exceptional.
Yeah.
But it was all Garcia. It was everybody tuned into the Garcia videos. No one cared about Haney. And the reality is, I think that affected Haney in one of those two ways that I said. And so they either thought they could step on him and establish themselves and he would fold, or that they needed to step on him to reassert dominance, because he had been so vocal in the press conference. And obviously, as you say, that backfired and doesn't suit his natural skill set whatsoever.
No, that's interesting. Yeah, and I guess with Ryan, like, what was your opinion on him coming in overweight as well, Matt? Was it, you sign a contract for a reason. I get that maybe he couldn't make the weight. I'd be interested to hear your perspective as a trainer and even a former professional, trying to make weight and then your opponent not making it. What's your opinion on that?
Well, one, I think it was a smart move on Garcia's side. I think coming in hydrated, feeling good, obviously great decision. Is the integrity, the morality, is that there? No, it's completely wrong. And it's unprofessional. That's the reality of it. However, the biggest mistake they made was agreeing to the bet for the $500,000 for every pound he was over the weight. Because the minute they did that, they gave him the ability to do it. By saying that, it was like, yeah, you owe me some money. And let's be honest, of the two people, who's going to miss $1.5 million more, Garcia or Haney? I know who I think it is. I don't know their net worth, but I would presume Garcia would throw that down the drain as pocket change. To him that meant nothing. And the minute they agreed to that bet, then I think they gave him license to do exactly that, because they obviously manifested that happening. They assumed that was going to happen. So why would he not play into it? I think what they should have done instead was say, right, if you're every pound over, you owe us 5 million. And then if you go more than £2 over or £3 over, the fight's off. Put limiting factors on the bet that actually are gonna force him to reconsider. I mean, $500,000 is pocket change to that guy. It's just ridiculous. And I think the psychology of that as well may have contributed to why Haney wanted to stand in the ring. He gets called weak all the time, and I think he probably wanted to demonstrate that he wasn't. And obviously that has backfired, because Garcia came in looking like a welterweight, light middleweight, and Haney came in the opposite.
Definitely. I guess some other points just around Ryan on the night as well. I think obviously his left hook was landing, but I also felt even the right hand was doing really well for him. Especially was, I felt like Haney, he didn't really, he was so focused on Garcia's left hook that he kind of opened himself up for the right hand, that in turn opened himself up for the left hand. And it was just, a nightmare for Devin, especially those kind of last, in the last part of the fight. However, saying all that, I felt, in between the rounds, Haney was actually not doing too bad. He was actually probably winning those rounds. And I guess the question I kind of wanted to ask Matt, if these guys were to have a rematch, do you think it would be any different, or do you think Ryan has Haney's number now? Is that, is it?
I think probably next time Haney comes into it with more mental clarity, I think he probably will Shakur Stevenson Garcia. I think he would just keep him on the back foot, or keep himself on the back foot, and just pick his punches and box the fight. He probably should have boxed anyway, to be honest. As you said, he was winning rounds. He had a lot of success when he boxed. But I think the real issue with the fight is that the physical dominance was there for Garcia all night, and it's ridiculous for Haney to try and, or it was ridiculous for Haney to try and assert himself physically over Garcia. There was no value to it, and he would have been better off, as I say, working much harder at range, and just trying to pick up the rounds and win comfortably. Because as we saw, obviously the referee and the judges were very pro Haney, in spite of Garcia's success, and so all he had to do really was steer clear of Garcia for 8 of the 12 rounds, and it would have been a win, even with a late drop, for example. It wouldn't have affected it as negatively as it did. But I think in a rematch, you probably see both guys more confident, but Haney boxing a lot more strategically and a lot more defensively. I think Garcia probably would. I would imagine this is somewhat what's happened in the past in their previous fights. I would think Garcia would probably get more brash, more brazen, and open himself up more, and so be outboxed easier. And then it kind of would continue in a cycle like that perpetually. Each time Haney wins, Garcia winds it back and then has success in the next fight when he's a little bit more tempered.
And I guess just the final point about the fight itself, and in terms of Ryan, like you're saying, he was using that, I guess his version of the Philly shell, turning his back. Now, what's your opinion on that? Do you think he should have been warned for doing that, or do you think he was just taking advantage of the situation?
Well, it's one of those really, because if you're going to warn a guy for something that is part of their style, you're almost giving the other guy the fight immediately. So it's quite hard as a referee to, for example, Nazim Hamed keeping his head so low, moving his head low. Yeah. Now, in every fight you ever had, you could have warned him. Same with Pernell Whitaker. You could have said, no, Ray, get your head up every time he's tried to slip a shot. Same as Tyson Fury's jab with the flick jab. Shane Mosley's jab, same thing. If you're going to pick these guys apart for their style, then you almost become responsible for the loss, and you give them a ready-made excuse, and also you sort of ruin the natural flow of the fight. With that being said, he does that terribly, and it should not be part of his style. It makes no sense. It doesn't ever put him in an advantageous position. In fact, it takes his best shot away from him, which is insane. He can't jab from there. And as you saw with Tank, the minute Tank took away his lead arm, he was really bad. And putting himself in that position basically does the same thing, but he's doing it to himself. He's taking the lead arm away from himself. And to be honest with you, I was disappointed in Haney's inability to capitalize better on that mistake, to use footwork, to shift round, to throw uppercuts under. I mean, it was. I really think it was a poor Devin Haney performance as much as a good Garcia performance, and I think that's attributed to the psychology.
Yeah, definitely. I think it was just the wrong game plan, and whether he changed his mind when he was in there, who knows? But I think as well, like you said before, Matt, I think even just the build up as well, he won the mental games that made Haney kind of approach the fight like that when he got in there. So yeah, I think but overall, I think it was an exciting fight. I'm not going to lie. I enjoyed it definitely. And I guess it shakes up the boxing sphere as well, seeing Ryan get that win. And I guess what would you like to see happen for both guys next? Do you think a rematch, or do you think they should just go their separate ways and try and build up again in a different division or whatnot?
Well, I think the loss for Haney almost is better for boxing. The loss probably increases the likelihood of the Shakur Stevenson fight, the Tank fight, a Teofimo fight. I think all of these guys boxing each other, and the inevitable losses that stem from that, are far more encouraging to the other guys to then take on the fight, because there's an element of protecting their own, there's an element of avoiding guys that they think are a top level, and I don't necessarily mean the fighters doing that. I think it's a promotional thing. I think the promoters don't want to take on fights that they don't need to take on. They're happy to just sort of push these guys along with B-class fights to try and build up their records to 40-0, 50-0, all that sort of rubbish. But what we're seeing now is these fighters actually wanting to compete with each other and test themselves a lot earlier on in their careers. And the result of that is Crawford Spence. The result of that is Inoue Fulton. The result of that is Haney and Garcia, Tank and Garcia. And I mean, Ryan Garcia has to be given enormous credit for basically making 2 of the biggest fights that we've seen in the last 10 years with regards to numbers. Also, the fights that young people are genuinely interested in seeing. These are characters that sell boxing to young people. You're looking at really Tank, Garcia, and Teofimo as 3 of the most charismatic names in boxing, and 3 guys that the young people are tuning in to watch. And so the more they fight each other, the better. I think the other thing is boxing, and this is something I talk about all the time, boxing frustrates me enormously because not only are the fans fickle, but also the boxing world is fickle. The amount of people I've seen in boxing, coaches who have suddenly completely U-turned on Haney, and now he's gone from being in their top 10 pound for pound to being a bum, to being overrated, to them thinking this was going to happen all along. It's frustrating, and it's detrimental to the sport. MMA has it far more intelligent with regards to the way they treat losses. The reality of boxing is that the loss shouldn't matter if you lose. A, if you lose right, and B, if you lose to the right people. If I had 100 fights and I won 90 of them, but my 10 losses were to Ali, Foreman, Frazier. Do you know what I mean? You shouldn't look at me and go, "Oh, that guy was rubbish," because I managed to beat the other 90 guys, but I just happened to lose to 3 absolutely exceptional fighters. And that's what these young guys need to be doing. So I'd like to see Haney Garcia rematch, but I'd like to see Haney have a couple of rebuilding fights in between to give himself the confidence, because I think psychologically this will impact him, whether he says it does or not. I think he needs to go back and have a little speak to his dad and try and maybe introduce something else into that camp. I'm not sure that's necessarily, though he was giving some reasonable advice, I'm not sure the emotional attachment there is necessarily the best thing. And I think his dad being involved in press conferences also protects Haney from actually engaging with it himself, which is detrimental to his own development as a promotional asset. And I'd like to see that fight happen again, in even maybe just one little build up in between, and then another fight. And I'd like to see Garcia ideally move up to welterweight, because let's be honest, he doesn't need to be at that weight. He looked very strong at 143?
Yeah, he was 143 on the night. Yeah.
I mean, he looked very strong, and he looked like he could easily carry a bit more size on him. So I think that team up with Derek James will work in his favor.
Yeah, definitely. I think like you were just saying there, Matt, about people kind of discrediting Haney and stuff now, and just boxing fans in general. I know we've talked about it through Instagram, just some of the attitudes some people have. And I hate this whole, when someone loses, they get treated like a journeyman, that they've got no future after they lose. It's just, it's bonkers to me. And I don't know why it's so, I don't know where it's come from. Was it the kind of Mayweather era when he went undefeated? I don't know what it is, but it's just, Haney's still, he was an undisputed champion at lightweight. He's won a title at 140 against a top guy, and because he has one loss, it's just, he's rubbish now, and it's just, I really hope eventually, people's opinions, start to change in terms of treating guys better when they lose, because at the end of the day, these guys need a dance partner as well, don't they? And if it wasn't for Devin Haney even stepping in the ring in the first place, Ryan wouldn't have got that memorable win. So you got to give these guys credit, and he's the top talent as well. So I'm sure he'll bounce back. Personally, I'd like to see him come back and, like you said, kind of just reassess everything and how he approaches fights, and even with his dad Bill being with him on the stage all the time. And I can't imagine that helps in the long term. So, but it is family, so it's a difficult one. But yeah, I think overall really exciting. And yeah, like you said with Ryan, Matt, I think maybe a move up to 147 probably makes sense, considering him missing weight and struggling to get to 140. So yeah, I think it will be interesting to see what happens next anyway. But we'll
just
move.
Point on that.
Oh yeah, off you go.
Sorry, just one more point on that. We were saying about whether it was with Mayweather that comes in. I think also it's the promotional companies have to hold themselves responsible, because the lack of challenges early in these guys' careers encourages them to be more negative in the fights that they take, and also the promotional companies are then less inclined to put them in front of challenging opposition because they want to protect that winning record and develop that so they have a greater cash cow. So I guess what I'm saying is the promotional companies should be challenging these guys much earlier on in their careers to take on these fights, a la De Gale and Groves. You know, that fight happened, I believe they both had around 10 fights each at that time, which is just crazy when you look at what they both did. And I think you know, the best fights should be happening a lot earlier on, and then boxing fans would be less inclined to write these guys off because, you know, Devin Haney, I think it was he 31-0.
Yeah.
So 31-0 prior to this fight, but really great record, by the way. I posted about this the other week. You know, I think it was his last 8 or 9 fights, all really good opposition, all very good victories. But why did he need 21 fights before that? Do you know what I mean? This is the thing that I think brings it all into question. And these guys have got extensive amateur backgrounds. They should be Lomachenko. They should be Rigondo. They should be coming into this, and after 3 or 4 developmental fights, going, right, this is the pro game. Let's get going. Let's find a credible opponent to face as early as we can. That's why you've got to respect Rolando Romero. You know, Rolly he's literally just taken on the hardest fights he possibly can, and he's looking for the hardest fights all the time. And the guy's barely got any experience. And whether he's a lunatic or not is completely irrelevant. And I think promoters need to take that into account as well. You know, watch what the UFC do. The guys are getting thrown in for world titles after 6-7 fights, and it's much better. And as I said, losing well is far better than continuing to win badly.
100%. Yeah, I completely agree with you there. I think I hope it, like I said, I hope it does change. And not to be biased or anything, I do feel in the UK we do a lot better at pushing guys along quicker compared to the American promotional companies. But I don't know what it is. I think the American promotion, you know, they want to get these big, massive records on these young guys, don't they? Whereas here in the UK, I feel like they do push them along because the public puts that pressure on. But that's just my opinion. I don't know what you think about that, Matt. But
well, I would say the other thing is that there is significantly less money behind these young British names as well. You know, the reality is we've got a much smaller population. We've got a much smaller area of support. You know, if somebody like, I don't know, you look at a young British prospect now, the people they'd be able to draw into a stadium, a couple of thousand is great numbers for Britain. Whereas, you know, Tank, when he was in his 10th fight, was probably doing 10, 11,000 people, you know. So it's, I think that's part of it as well. They have a lot bigger financial backing a lot earlier. And that would be an argument I would have against what you've said there, that the real British boxers that are pushing themselves and challenging themselves aren't necessarily the ones that should be. You know, you're seeing Olympians up till now that have bin protected for a lot longer than they should have been. As I said earlier, James De Gale deserves an enormous amount of credit for taking that George Groves fight because they were the ones that asked for that, nobody else. So I think these guys, you know, Ben Whittaker's a really good example. He needs to be looking for the hardest possible fights. An old gym mate of mine, Bryce Goodridge, who is unbeaten as a pro. He was an ABA champion. He's one of the most awkward and fluid boxers that you could possibly want to see. I don't know if you're familiar with him at all, but he's exceptional. Look at some of his footage. He's so evasive, and he's also 6'4". But they offered his manager Chris Sanagar offered Ben Whittaker that fight, not Ben Whittaker directly, but Ben Whittaker's team that fight, and the team said no because there wasn't enough reward in it. You know, so fights like that is just crazy. You know, they should have said, yeah, let's have that. And then imagine how a 7-0 former ABA champion that won the Four Nations, that you know has won 3 Harrington Cups. That looks a lot better on his record than, you know. Anyway,
no, it's interesting to know. But yeah, we'll move on quickly, Matt. We'll try and get through these fights. So we've also got Canelo versus Munguia. Interesting fight. I think stylistically, it's actually has I think it does have the potential to be, you know, pretty fiery. I think Munguia definitely, you know, he likes to come forward. He's got power behind his all his punches, really. I did a breakdown on him recently. He's got a terrific left hook as well. Obviously, he can leave himself open at times, not going to lie. But Canelo Alvarez, I think most are probably expecting him to get the victory and favoring him going into this. There's obviously been a lot of pressure with all the Benavidez stuff, why he's not taking that fight. So he's going to have to really prove a point probably against Munguia in this one. But yeah, Matt, what's your thoughts on that fight?
I think this whole fight will be contingent on the jab. If Canelo jabs, it's an easy night for him. If he jabs and uses his feet, it's an easy night for him. But he needs to be active with it, because otherwise he'll lose rounds. And I think in the past he's been really guilty of just giving up the first half of the fight, in a similar way to what we have seen Lomachenko do when he's moved up in weight. I think when guys like those move up in weight, they tend to be more compounding value of punches, cumulative impact of punches. And that's why a lot of the stoppages happen late in fights. And I think Canelo has been sort of reliant on that for a while. The impact his body shots have on his opponents, and this sort of cumulative impact of that. And I don't think he can rely on that this time. I think Munguia is going to be tough. He's going to be in front of him, and he's going to be looking to keep working non-stop. I think they're going to be looking to go out there for a stoppage, because that sounds mental knowing Canelo's chin. But I really, really think that the Munguia team are going to be going out there looking to take his head off from the first bell. I don't think they're going to try and box him. I think they're going to be looking to get inside and just work. And I think they're really going to heavily press the body. I think they're going to look to get to Canelo's body early, and sort of box him in the way that he boxes so many of his other opponents now. I think they're going to try and beat the body as hard as they can, and slow him down even more than he already has later on in the fight. Who do I think wins? I think, as I said, if Canelo can establish the jab and do it.
We were talking about, obviously, Canelo Munguia.
I was just about to say that I think if Canelo can establish the jab and keep it busy, then I think he can win. But if he boxes the way he's boxed in his previous fights, then he is at risk of losing a points decision. I don't think Munguia will stop him, but I think the act of being as aggressive as he will be is what will pick him up the rounds.
Yeah, definitely. I think people are underestimating Munguia going into this, in my opinion. I think he has actually got a lot more tools in his box than people think. I think he's got a very good jab, actually. He likes to jab to the body, and I've been saying this for years, Matt. No one tends to go through the body jab against Canelo for whatever reason. Maybe they're worried about the follow-up counter or whatever, but that's one of Munguia's best punches, actually, is going to the body, and that might be a way to kind of offset Canelo's rhythm, in my opinion. I think that's definitely a tactic I could see him using early in the fight. Just because when I was doing my breakdown recently, I watched all his fights from, I think, about 2018. And as he's kind of developed over the years, that's a punch he's very good at throwing. So I can see him using that. And like you said, I could see him, not similar to Ryan Garcia, but more like, taking it to Canelo and really...
Mexican style.
Yeah, Mexican style, as you say. And trying to land that left hook and go into the body, both of them. But I'm actually really excited for that fight. I think stylistically it could be really good. And
I think it's a very good fight, mate. I think it's a very good fight. Everybody's got hung up on the Benavidez fight. Let's be honest, Canelo's boxed everyone that he could possibly box. Do we want to see the Benavidez fight? Yes. Is the Munguia fight still a great fight? Yes. Like the two things aren't mutually exclusive. They can both be good fights. And I think that's interesting that you say about the body jab, because I would presume, I don't know if this is something that you mentioned, but Mayweather actually used that same punch to dominate Canelo through their fight, and that's one of Mayweather's greatest assets. And I've done a couple of videos on my Instagram about this in the past. That body jab, if you can establish that early on in a fight, it's a game changer. As we saw with Inoue and Stephen Fulton, it's the same thing. Body jab is big.
Definitely. We'll move on to the next fight. I know we're tight for time, so
no worries, mate.
We've obviously got Fury Usyk. Just wanted to hear your opinion on that. I know everyone's talked about this fight, obviously, but I just wanted to get your thoughts and opinion on it, and who you kind of siding with going into this.
Okay. I'm going to set your trolls up big time in your comments here, because for me now, this is an easy night for Usyk.
Okay. Easy. Oh.
Easy. I think this is an easy night for Usyk. I think by easy, I don't mean that he's going to, walk over him and knock him out. I don't think that's going to happen. I think he's just going to win pretty comfortably on the cards. I don't think Fury has ever wanted this fight. B, I think Usyk's got a lot of things in his favor. The southpaw stance, getting outside, his ability to switch stances as well, his footwork. And also I think if you consider their styles, okay, and Fury is a very big man, and he's obviously very mobile, and he's a good counterpuncher, and he's got a nice jab. Now, Usyk also has all of those things, but he's not such a big man. And I think he does them all in a more streamlined manner. He's less open as he does them. He's more responsible as he does them. And he has a better base as he does them. Now, does that mean he can't be hurt? No. But I think he's been hit by some big, big men in the past. And, people forget that he was boxing at super heavyweight in the world, what was it called? World Series boxing.
World Series of boxing or something. Yeah.
And he was boxing at super heavyweight, and he was coming up against some enormous men, and he was walking through them. And I think he's got a good chin. I think a key thing for Fury is whether he gets to the body. If he can get to Usyk's body when he's leaning on him, that may change things. But otherwise, I think I'm going to say a comfortable points victory for Usyk, and we will have an undisputed heavyweight champion of the world.
Finally, after about, is it 24 years?
Something like that. Who was the last? Lennox Lewis.
Lennox Lewis, yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. I know, I can't believe it's been this long, but no, it's good. No, I'm just happy that the fact, hopefully it still happens, especially after Fury pulling out, but
wasn't there a 10 million pound fee that he has to pay if he pulls out again?
Yeah, there's a huge fee, and I think there is a replacement opponent in case one of them does pull out. But I think it will go ahead this time. I generally do think that cut looked pretty bad. But we'll see what happens.
The cut was 100%. I believe. People were saying the cut. You don't fake cuts as a boxer.
Who cuts themselves? Yeah, I know.
Literally, you just wouldn't do it, and that's just putting yourself at risk in future fights. It's stupid. No one would do that.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. But no, it should be a good. I think it's the 25th of May. So yeah, I think obviously another undisputed fight. Great to see. And then
finally,
we've also and then we've finally got another one after that. Inoue versus. Well, I think this is actually before. Yes, it's before the 6th of May. It's just after Canelo Munguia, and Inoue versus Nery. I think, like most, we're probably all expecting Inoue to get the win again, but Nery poses another, he's a rangy kind of southpaw Mexican. Could cause some problems, but But do you think, does Nery have any chance, or do you think it will be another kind of similar to the Tapales fight? Inoue will take his time and then he'll eventually overpower him.
I think it's probably going to be a case of rounds in the bank early on. I think he's going to pick up rounds with jab work and body work for 2-3 rounds. And then, as he normally does, he'll start going through the gears and have more success. I think it's probably going to be a stoppage for Inoue, maybe 8, 9, 10, somewhere around there. I don't think it'll go all the way to the end of the fight. I think Nery will have success. I think he'll probably, as I said, the early rounds he'll probably look quite strong, look quite reasonable. But as you said, once Inoue goes through the gears, it's a different ball game.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think I kind of, like you're saying, I think mid to late rounds I can see Inoue kind of getting the job done, and I think I'm excited to see where he kind of goes from here. Obviously, he's wanting to kind of get a few fights at featherweight before he maybe moves up to super featherweight. Super bantamweight before he moves up to featherweight. Apologies. So it'll be interesting to see how long he stays at that weight, or if he does take a jump up soon. But I think I love watching Inoue. I think he's just an amazing boxer. He's fast, he's powerful, he's got good fundamentals, his footwork. It's just great boxer to study and learn from.
He is somebody that I often tell people, if you were saying to a young kid who said, right, I want to be a world champion, who do I watch? You would all day you would say, watch Nery Inoue, watch the monster, replicate everything he does, because he's he's absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
Obviously, there is no perfect in boxing because you can't swim without getting wet. Everyone's susceptible to being hit at some point. But the reality is that man is just beautiful to watch. He's poetry in motion, and every single part of his fundamental style is very, very well done.
And we'll move on to this is a big one. I think everyone has wanted this for quite a while, and it is Artur Beterbiev versus Dmitry Bivol. And this is a fight, you know, I keep changing my mind about who's going to win this. I'm doing a video on this, just doing my breakdown for this, and you know, I literally, it's such a hard pick. I'm probably still slightly leaning towards Beterbiev.
Oh, nice. Me too.
I think people underestimate his boxing ability.
Yeah, massively.
I think he's got so many more tools in the box than people discredit. They just say, you know, he's got the power, he kind of bulldozes, but he doesn't. You know, he's very methodical in the way he cuts off the ring, he applies pressure, how he uses his jab, how he sets up his combinations. He's just a tremendous fighter, as much as he is a knockout artist as well. Whereas on the other side, you've got Dmitry Bivol. I think he's incredible as well. You know, I don't think there's many fighters that could replicate the style he does and have so much success. And just the way he moves in and out, and he's just a tremendous boxer to watch, beautiful boxer to watch at times. And the kind of thing that he's missing over the last kind of 5-6 years is getting those knockouts. However, he just seems to dominate guys with his pure boxing skill and ability. But yeah, Matt, let me know your thoughts. I'd love to hear. I've been dying to hear your thoughts on this fight.
Well, I am in agreement. I think Beterbiev is enormously underappreciated. I think amongst all the other things you mentioned, he's also really good at landing illegal blows from the very first bout, which has a big effect. Keep hitting people high on the head and behind the ear, and later on in the fight, they suddenly start getting a little bit more tired, a little bit less balanced, and the shots have more effect. But he does it in a very legal way, if you know what I mean. He sort of it's just through his boxing. He kind of I sort of liken him to Gennady Golovkin. Very much avoided in his kind of early career. Actually, a very, very efficient and effective boxer. Doesn't waste an enormous amount of punches. Lands very well. Really good fundamentals. Very basic head movement. You know, people think he doesn't, but he doesn't just walk forward taking shots. Little slips, little parries, small lateral steps. He's really intelligent, and I think this is going to be a very similar fight to the Anthony Yard fight. Actually, I think you're going to see Bivol looking successful early on and probably picking up a lot of rounds. The mid rounds, the work that Beterbiev has been successful with will start to show. You know, there may be some bruising, some cuts, whatever. You know, the Beterbiev style tends to lean towards that kind of result. And then later on, you're going to see Artur really come through and start working, get into the body, get into the head. I think his body work is going to slow Bivol down. And I think the other thing that people forget is that, yes, Bivol is very, very skillful, but I really do believe he's a one-trick pony. I think he's just really, really, really good at that one trick, you know, similar to Ryan Garcia. Ryan Garcia, very, very fast left hand. He doesn't really have a great deal else. It just so happens that very fast left hand is enough to deal with 95% of opposition. I think the Canelo fight gassed everyone up about Bivol. And I think that should have been an easy night's work for Bivol every night of the week. And it wasn't that easy. I mean, it wasn't like Canelo got beat to pieces, stopped. You know, he looked fine afterwards. He just got outboxed by a much, much bigger guy. And I don't think that will work against Beterbiev. I think also there is, of course, the coaching styles of the Mother Russia. They'll have a little bit more knowledge of each other. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not such a guessing game for them, because their coaching teams and them themselves, they'll have a greater understanding of what they will have done and what they will have been through. So they'll have a broader knowledge than other opposition necessarily have. But I really do think it's a Beterbiev win. I think it's maybe 7-5 if it goes points. With Bivol's real success being early on in the fight. And if not, then it's a Beterbiev, a very late stoppage. Very late for me.
Okay. No, that's interesting to hear your opinion on that, Matt. I think, because I've seen a lot of people say that, Bivol will be able to just basically box him from the outside for the full 12 rounds. And I'm just like, what? Have they ever actually watched how Beterbiev, cuts off the ring? And the only thing about Beterbiev, which I'm a bit, unsure, is maybe his age. But he looks after himself so well, and he has done his whole life. And
although he has got a terrible medical record, lots of back injuries and stuff like that, which is detrimental as well.
Yeah. Oh, okay, that's a good point. And you obviously see some of his strength and conditioning exercises that he does. It's just crazy. Yeah, how strong the guy is. And for that weight as well. Unbelievable. And I just feel like, is there the potential not that he'll turn into an old man overnight or anything, but could he just slow up a little bit for this fight? I don't think so personally, but there is always that potential that we could see him kind of maybe start, if Bivol is able to take him into the later rounds and box the way he does, could he get the decision over him? I guess we will find out, obviously, in
All
June.
I would say to that is that I think if you consider Mayweather-Pacquiao and how big that fight was, this to both of these guys is that fight. This is the career-defining fight for them both. Whoever loses, everyone's going to forget the rest of their record. That's the reality of boxing. Back to the fickle boxing fan. People will say, "Oh, Beterbiev's washed," or he was just a hype job, or Bivol was just hype job after the Canelo victory. And neither of those things are true, but that's the way it's going to go. So I think he will come into this in the best shape he's ever been and ready to do whatever it takes. And I think that's going to be a contributing factor.
Yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to that one though, Matt. I think
Me too.
everyone will be tuning into that. But even better, on the same night, we get the 5 versus 5, which I think it's a bit different. It's great that the Saudis are put this together on the same night as Beterbiev Bivol. And what's your thoughts on this event in terms of the undercard and who you kind of favoring in terms of the picks? I'll just remind you who there is. There's Wilder versus Zhang, Hrgovic versus Dubois, Rayford versus Nick Ball, Amma Williams versus Shiraz, and Craig Richards versus Willie Hutchison. So some great fights in there. Really entertaining. I think most will obviously be keeping an eye on that Wilder Zhang fight and Hrgovic Dubois, but the other ones are really good. Rayford, he's a very talented guy as well, and Nick Ball, come forward, aggressive. That could also be an interesting fight. So, what's your thoughts on this?
Right, I think let's go through it one at a time. Craig Richards beats Willie Hutchinson. I think he outboxes him, and he is underappreciated in terms of his boxing ability. So I think he'll get that win. I think Hamza Shiraz beats Amma Williams. I think he's overrated. I don't think he's a great boxer, Amma Williams. That's not, sorry. I shouldn't say that, because then people will jump on it and be like, yeah, he's overrated, he's terrible. I mean that in terms of his corresponding position and ranking as such. Obviously he's a great boxer, but comparative to the people in the surrounding microcosm of that boxing weight. So I think Shiraz wins. I have absolutely no interest in the Nick Ball and what's his name?
Ray Ford.
Ray
Yeah.
Ford fight. I think that's just going to be war. I'm not really interested in that from a
Okay.
boxing perspective. I think Nick Ball's got a very good chance, but I don't think either guy is a world beater. I know Ford has just won a world title, but when I say world beater, I mean they're not going to go through the weights and be an exceptional name that record books. I think they're just both geared for exciting fights throughout their careers, and I think Ray Ford, showed a ton of heart in his previous fight, and we're going to see more of that again. And I think Ball will just apply pressure start to finish. So yeah, for me, that's either going to be a mid to late stoppage or it'll go points. And I think Ball will probably pick up being more active. I think Dubois Hrgovic is a tough one. I think Hrgovic might knock him out, but I think Dubois will be probably dominating in advance of that fact. That's the thing with Hrgovic. He looks really ungainly. He looks really unorganized. And then he hits you with a right hand and you go, whoa, where'd that come from? And he's got an enormous punch on him. This is the one, Wilder Zhang. Now, so hard to pick because Zhang is not Parker, and he won't move his head and move his feet in the same volume that Parker did and that he used to kind of dominate Wilder and manipulate Wilder's rhythms. But he also looks real tough. Zhang is a real tough guy. I lean towards a Wilder stoppage because I think Wilder is criminally underrated. I think people are imbeciles to talk down about him the way they do. The reality of his record is, yes, he fought a lot of lackluster opponents, but to knock out, how many is it? 39, 38?
39 or 40, I think, yeah.
Of his victories is just insanity. And you have to be special to be able to do that. Does his boxing leave something to be questioned? Yeah, there's a lot there that could be worked on. But I think perhaps them working on that may be the reason why he's been a little bit less successful in his recent fights. I think sometimes you should leave the diamond uncut. Let's just say maybe cutting the diamond takes away too much of the rough edges that make it more difficult for everybody else to understand. Part of his success may very well have been the fact that he was an enigma, and you could be hit out of anywhere with an enormous punch, and then bosh, it was game over. And I don't think trying to tighten that up has really been beneficial. Logically, it should have been, but I don't think it has.
Definitely. No, I think I'm probably, as you're saying, I side with Wilder to maybe get that victory. I think as much as Zhang is obviously a big puncher as well, I feel he does leave himself open at times as well, especially when he tries to land that right hook. It could work either way, couldn't it? Zhang could catch Wilder or but I see it more Wilder catching Zhang at some point. And I keep going back to that Wilder Ortiz fight where Ortiz was kind of dominating Wilder pretty much in both the fights, and then just out of nowhere, Wilder throws that right hand and lights down. I could see that happening again, Matt. I think
absolutely.
But overall, I think I think it's a good kind of concept idea. It's really something good. It's something just a bit different, and I think fans are pretty excited about it in general. And then because you've got Beterbiev and Bivol in the same night, it's just it's just amazing, incredible. And you kind of think
a lot of eyes to boxing. I think the Saudi money has been the best thing that's happened to boxing because it's forcing fights to happen that otherwise wouldn't have happened. And it's forced the promoters to work together in ways they never would have because they can't afford to say no to the money either.
Oh, definitely. And then there's obviously there's chat about them doing kind of international events in America and the UK as well. So, because I think that was the fear that they would just kind of keep it internal in Saudi, but I think they're kind of more open to doing their own events worldwide to kind of, obviously they'll want to raise the profile of Saudi, but I think for boxing anyway, it definitely benefits the sport if they're putting on events in America like Terence Crawford, or there's chat about him maybe fighting Madrimov. And
it is,
yeah.
Israel.
Yeah, is I think it's Israel Madrimov, yeah, him. So no, I think it's exciting for the sport, and I think these types of concepts as well help it. I know it's not popular with everyone, but I'm happy with it. That's the main thing, and most boxing fans are, and that's the
The
main thing.
reality is the fighters are getting paid more, the fans are getting more good fights to watch, and some of them are a lot better time as well.
Yeah,
So it's all good by me. I don't think
yeah,
there's anything to moan about.
definitely. No, that's awesome. So Matt, we'll go into a bit of a Q&A. I got some questions from Instagram, and more from Instagram than YouTube anyway, but we'll kind of try and get through them. I don't know how much time we've got. I think 10 minutes. So we'll try and just kind of get through as many as we can,
Cool.
and we'll see how we get on. Is that cool?
Yeah,
Awesome.
magic, mate. Yep, all good.
First question. What are your ambitions as a trainer and the boxing locker?
So short term, I want to get a larger space. I need a bigger gym. Long term, I want to train world champions. That's the reality of it. Most of the work that I do at the gym subsidizes my boxing club, so that I can train fighters. At the moment, I work mostly with white collar fighters, but I have experience training British champion professionals. I worked with Felix Cash. I worked with Joel McIntyre. I've trained Josh Frankham. I've had bare knuckle world champions. I've had amateur champions. So I've got the experience, I've got the knowledge, I've got the understanding. But for me, the key is that I live in a very difficult area with regards to it's fairly affluent. So the people that I have in my surrounding area aren't necessarily of the right mindset or background to really excel in boxing. And that's the reality of it. We try and kind of overlook these issues, but there has to be an element of struggle in most boxers, because without it, they just don't have the dedication and the drive to push themselves to get what they need to get and do what they need to do.
Yeah. Could you potentially see, like, I guess, fighters maybe moving down closer to your gym just to even get away from distractions and stuff? Is that a possibility for
That's
guys going
absolutely
forward?
that's something I would do now. I get people message me, but it's usually, oh, can I come down and do a few sessions? And we've done that a few times, but I never. Lots of guys don't want to leave their home turf, and
Yeah.
I understand that. I've got children. It's hard to leave your family behind.
Exactly. No, that's interesting. Next one. What is the most overrated piece of training equipment?
I don't know. It's hard to say, because I think everything has application if you use it properly. This is the reality of it. I think what we see on Instagram is drills that are dramatized, that aren't functional, that aren't realistic. But so many of the pieces of equipment being used are enormously beneficial if you're using them with the good foundational fundamental skills around it. Boxing bar, spar bar, whatever company you want to look at, all of the companies now that have replicated those bars are fantastic if you're using them right. The ball on the head, great tool if you're using it at the right time.
Yeah.
Speed bag, all of these things, they all have a time and a place. I think probably the most overrated thing to use in a boxing gym is strength and conditioning equipment. I would say that's my biggest thing. I think, I shared on my Instagram story earlier, actually, a guy, I can't remember his name, I think it's Dean Lewis, Dean Lewis, boxing trainer. He posted a really good thing saying too many boxers now are more focused on getting fit than getting ready to fight. And I think that's the problem,
That's so true.
obsession with strength and conditioning, and the obsession with lifting weights and machines and all of this rubbish. And they've got a crap jab. They can't slip a punch. They don't know how to catch. They've got rubbish footwork, and it's just mind blowing. And these guys are investing an equivalent amount of time in the gym working strength and conditioning as they are in the boxing gym working on their boxing, and it just makes no sense. It's just it's ludicrous.
No, I totally agree with you. I think if more guys just paid attention on improving their technique rather than doing bicep curls, we'd see so many more, better fighters, wouldn't we? It's just, yeah,
Absolutely.
this whole strength and conditioning thing it's crazy how many guys are putting so much focus on it. There's a time and a place for it, like it's
Absolutely.
important,
Gotta
but your boxing training has to be the priority, 100%.
Just a quick one, can it?
Yeah.
Look at Terence Crawford. Now, Terence Crawford is an exceptional boxer, arguably one of the 3 best boxers on the planet, right? Now, he lifts massive weights. Have you ever seen the videos of him deadlifting and stuff?
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
But he also spends 3.5 hours a day in the boxing gym. He's not going, oh, I've done my weights for today, I'll just do 6 rounds on the back.
Yeah.
Done. You have to be obsessed with boxing. You have to be obsessed with acquiring more skill and more knowledge and more understanding. You have to be obsessed with that. The other stuff is just peripheral. You just utilize that to compound the skills that you have and augment the skills that you have for boxing.
Move on to the next one. Could you suggest some fighters from the past or present who serve as good examples to study in terms of developing solid fundamentals?
Watch Roberto Duran at lightweight. Ignore him when he went up in the weight. Watch him at lightweight. Watch Julio Cesar Chavez. Excellent boxer. Kind of gets a bit of a bad rap now because of I think a lot of people who are really popular do tend to get a bit of a bad rap because they get the concept of being gassed up a bit, and everybody's hyped them up. But a very nice boxer to watch. I'll tell you another really nice boxer to watch with good fundamentals, Jermaine Taylor. Watch Jermaine Taylor.
Okay.
Watch his fight with Carl Froch for 9 rounds. It was absolute perfection. And then Froch. But yeah, I mean, there's an innumerable number. The reality is, you can look back and I could name 100 fighters. You could probably pick 3 of the greatest fighters ever. Say Roberto Duran, Sugar Ray Leonard, and Sugar Ray Robinson. And if you emulate them as much as possible, you're really not going to go far wrong.
Yeah, definitely. The guy that came to my mind was Miguel Cotto. I thought he had brilliant fundamentals and he just had everything in place, especially during his prime. Just an amazing boxer just to watch. And that
is my top 5 of all time, mate. My personal, not necessarily a skill set, but my personal favorite.
Yeah.
Miguel's in the top 5. I mean, he had, not only was he everything that he needed to be in the boxing ring, he was everything he needed to be outside of it, and
100%.
And just one of the best people in boxing, I would say.
Oh, 100%. No, I agree with you. I just love Miguel Cotto, and he just fought everyone as well. Just
at
great
their
fighter.
Preferred weight as well, not at his.
Yeah. Who are your top 5 pound for pound fighters right now?
That's quite easy. Inoue and Crawford would be 1 and 2. They could switch as and when, to be honest, depending on the day. And then Canelo, Usyk, and the 5th one might be a bit harder. Canelo, Usyk. I feel like I've forgotten somebody. There could
Tank Davis, is that? Would you say Tank?
Not for me. I think he's too one-dimensional, and I don't mean in a negative way. I think he just relies too heavily on his power. I think he's boxing at a weight way too high for his natural size, really. I would say I would probably pick somebody like Jesse Rodriguez, somebody who's coming through, that I think has got an exceptional skill set, and that I think we haven't seen the best of yet, but definitely has the potential.
Yeah, that's good. Good 5. We got. Can you share a memorable moment or lesson that impacted one of your fighters?
One of my fighters. Oh, okay, not myself. Okay.
Or you can give both if you want, Matt. That's fine.
I'll give you one for me first. So I went and I sparred Gavin Rees in Newport, was it? Training with Gary Lockett. I went up and I did some rounds with Gavin Rees, and we did 4 rounds. And I went in the first round and I outboxed him, and I was like, wow, so good. And I thought, this is easy. And I was peppering him with jabs. And the next round, the first shot he hit me with a body shot, and I was absolutely folded over. I didn't go down, but I was just there like, I couldn't breathe. I didn't realize, and this is the difference in amateurs and pros. I hadn't had a professional fight then, but I didn't realize that first round he was just looking at me. He was just seeing what I was doing, and I was landing shots, but nothing of really, really enormous impact. Just the shots he was letting me land, and he taught me very quickly. So they gave me a minute to kind of recover, and then I just sort of ran away for 3 rounds. But great experience,
Yeah,
and it
definitely.
showed me not to rush around and be a little bit more patient in my work. From a fighter's perspective, I think almost every fighter is the same thing, and that's to not get too far inside your own head. I think so many people before they box will think through every single possible outcome, and they panic and they get themselves anxious and they get themselves stressed. You need nerves, and you need natural nerves. It's not natural to wait 10 hours before you have a fight. It's not natural to plan to fight somebody 3 weeks, 4 weeks ahead. So that's a very unnatural thing that you're dealing with already. You don't need to complicate it more by thinking through every outcome. The reality is you've done all the work in the gym. You should have done all the work in the gym. So the only thing you should be thinking about is the things that you've been practicing.
No, that's good points there, Matt, and great advice as well. And I know it's bringing back memories for me in terms of like my first fight. I remember just the nerves. I was just not ready for it. I was mentally, just because I didn't know what to expect. And yeah, it's like you overcomplicate it in your head, and it's once you kind of get that experience, you get over that hump, and you go into the next one. You kind of learn from it. But yeah, kind of as a beginner, definitely I remember kind of mentally being all over the place. But yeah, I think
Amazing the places your mind can take you to. What if this happens? What if that happens? And
yeah,
they're the most unlikely things ever. What if I slip? It's just crazy.
yeah,
Crazy.
100%. All right, we'll get through just a couple more now because I know you're tight for time,
No problem, mate.
and this is quite a general one. But what do you think is a good training routine for an amateur fighter?
Do everything is 3x2s. Have 30 seconds rest, not a minute. So do 3x2s. Okay, so I'll take through a whole workout. 3x2 skip, or 3x2 speed bag for your first thing, and then 3x2 following that up. So those two can be interchangeable. So you've done 6x2, that's your warm up. Then do 3x2s on the heavy bag, then do 3x2s pads or sparring, one of the two. You don't necessarily have to do both. And then if those are competition rounds, so if they're proper rounds, if you're not in competition, or if you haven't got a fight planned, then you might want to double that, do sort of 6 rounds of light sparring, tech sparring, body sparring, or just tech work on the pads. Then get up in front of the mirror and do 6 rounds of shadow boxing drills, specific things, work on the things you've done in pads or on sparring. And then finish up groundwork for 20 to 30 minutes, just basic fundamental bodyweight exercise in high volume circuits, ton ups, those kind of things. And then finish off with 10 to 15 minutes of stretching. Job done. That's about 2 hours. And that's pretty much the perfect workout. You could do that 2 or 3 times a week. You need to do some sprints a couple of times a week and a couple of long jogs, and then you've got everything you need.
You heard it here first, guys. Great advice. I'll make a list of that for everyone.
Write that down.
Write that down. Yeah. I'll just a couple more questions, and then we'll leave it there. Is good footwork better than a solid jab?
They go hand in hand, but yes.
That sounds.
I would say they go hand in hand, but yes, because you can't have one without the other. You can't have a solid jab with bad footwork, but you can have good footwork without a solid jab. So I would say the footwork, yes, but they are intrinsically linked. The two things are one thing.
Ali versus Tyson in their primes, who would win? I imagine it's Mike Tyson.
I mean, it's a hard one, but you've just got to look at the style that Ali struggled with most. Frazier's style, Tyson basically is just I would say slightly washed out version of what Joe Frazier did. I'll probably get lambasted for that one as well. Frazier was a better fighter, but Tyson would be a lot stronger, a lot heavier, a lot more dynamic. The punches would probably be individually more powerful. It depends. Is it a 15-round fight? That counts. Because if Ali can run away from you for 10 rounds, there's no way Tyson would keep what he would do going, Probably Tyson, but it's a close one.
Yeah, interesting. All right, and we'll finish off with this, just the last one. What fight are you most looking forward to?
What fight am I? Bivol Beterbiev. Although Fury and Usyk is also exciting. but that's a bit tempered by the fact that it's been cancelled so many times.
Yeah, definitely. No, I agree. That for me as well, that's the one I'm looking forward to. But Matt, no, really appreciate you coming on today, man. Great chatting to you. So many gems as well you've dropped today. And I guess you just want to tell everyone where they can find you. I know you're across lots of social media, but yeah, tell them where they can find you.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me on, mate. I really appreciate it. You can find me everywhere at the Boxing Locker. I'm on Threads, I'm on Twitter, X, whatever you call it now, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all of it. Find me everywhere at the Boxing Locker. And please do give me a follow. I appreciate everybody watching this.
Awesome, man. No, Matt, once again, thanks so much for coming on. Definitely get you on again, man. And yeah, no, just really appreciate it.
It would be a pleasure to come on anytime, mate. And thank you for having such a fantastic channel. I mean, you've done brilliantly and you deserve a lot of credit for it. Well done, mate.
Thank you, man. Really appreciate it. All right. Thanks everyone for watching. We'll catch you in the next one. Thanks.